these ladies 2 weeks ago at the Merritt Island F.U.E.L. We had them speak to our group, and it was very successful, very interesting, and very entertaining for us to learn about what's going on. Brandy is the CEO, Brandy Crisafulli,
Yeah.
is the CEO and founder of Life Recaptured. They operate homes, assist human trafficking survivors. We always think about what happens, but there's a long process after these people are rescued, men and women, mostly women, but men and women are rescued out of human trafficking. So they have the full support of Brevard County, our friend Wayne Ivey, Sheriff Wayne Ivey, the governor, and folks like that. So with no further ado, we will welcome Brandy, and she'll introduce her partner, Lori.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you, Bill and Bill. We're so glad and so honored that we could be here today. So I just want to move along and tell you that I work with Lori Dorr, and she's with an organization called F.U.E.L. And what she's going to do is give you some facts on human trafficking, and then I'm going to come back up and share my heart with you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I am so excited. I am thankful, grateful, blessed to be here right now. And I'm just really excited about giving you some information. Called Out is a nonprofit for human trafficking, and we do focus a lot on education, empowering survivors, and then eradicating anyone who is willingly involved in the crime of human trafficking. So I look forward to sharing with you, because I want to put some things on the screen for you to see. I'm going to actually kind of stand in the corner, and because that's where the laptop is, so that's where I'll be speaking from. But I truly am grateful to be here. I am a strong follower of Christ, and I stand against the enemy every single day through him.
Amen.
And I am excited to talk to all of you. I'll just give you a little quick funny truth about me. It's just that when I was a little girl, I was such a tomboy, to such a fact that when people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said a boy. And everyone always to laugh and say, well, good luck with that. Nowadays, that'd be kind of a risky thing to say. But I welcome all of you men, and I really love to see heartfelt men in the community, so I'm blessed to be able to speak with you. So let me just flip back here.
Gonna work you today, Brian.
Paying over.
He's got to earn his pay somehow.
Okay, so human trafficking is not only real, but you are currently sitting in the number 3 state in the entire nation. And this ranking comes from hotline calls. So that is just any victim that somehow, don't even ask me how they ever got to a phone, because that's the first thing a trafficker will take from them and destroy. How they ever found a number, and we just hope that when they did make that call that they were within a rescue, but typically it's a very small percentage. You'll see in a few minutes on the rescue rate of traffic victims. But this ranking is just based on hotline calls, so we know there are far more young men and young women that have been trafficked or are exposed to it. So here are some of the heartbreaking facts. Basically, the terrible, hardcore black and white term is rape for profit. An average age is anywhere from 50% of them are under the age of 16. Many of them are even 10 to 12-year-olds. It's a very vulnerable age, and traffickers like that age because they can manipulate them very quickly. But typically, even all the way to college students, many times, even college students, boys and girls fall into these types of traps. The life expectancy, unfortunately, is only about 7 years, just due to the fact of a variety of things. The physical abuse that comes pairs alongside of trafficking, the drug use that is involved in human trafficking, where the victims are given drugs immediately to get them into an addicted state, to make them more vulnerable, and to get them to do what they want for them. And right now, the current drug that we see most survivors trying to detox from is meth, which we all know is extremely hardcore. The rescue rate has increased slightly. Instead of it just being 1 out of 100, it's not increased much, but it is 2 out of 100. So that is what we're saying in actuality, gentlemen, is that this is a 98% successful crime. And one of the biggest things that puts the United States on the map with this is our tolerance for porn. Is that we look the other way with pornography. We see men and women, young young people looking at these types of things, and we are not as strong about it as other countries are on getting that out of our current community. So, human trafficking is the fastest growing crime, second only to drug trafficking. It's a $150 billion industry across the globe. Nationally, it's a $32 billion industry. So these are the kind of profits that we're talking about, just to give it to you in reality. And drug trafficking now, a lot of times drug traffickers are also human trafficking at the same time. Because you have drugs, you sell your drugs, and when you run out of drugs, you have to wait until you get more. Sadly, when you're selling humans, when people are your product, you never run out of product. And so that was also too having to do with the number of times that trafficked men and trafficked women are used every single day. Another problem with the trafficking situation too here, especially in Florida, is family trafficking, based on families and adults and parents and aunts and uncles that have gotten themselves within that opioid addiction generation that we've all heard so much about. They'll do anything to get drugs, and trafficking their own children is what they will do within their own homes. So they're still sending those children to school. They're actually put them in church because they don't want society to think they're upstanding citizens. So many testimonies that we've heard is that I was in church every Sunday, I was in youth group, nobody ever knew it, no one ever saw, no one ever asked, no one ever tried to get me out. So these are just some things that we need to really become aware of. Every 30 seconds, another person becomes a victim of human trafficking. This is what we're talking about, just to show you what I mean by fast-growing crime. And because of the web and because of social media, you can have your front door locked, you can have a gun by your bed, you can be a concealed carry, whatever the case is. They can still get into your home through the bedrooms of young adults, through their cell phones, through their laptops, their iPads. And now with homeschooling being so much more prevalent during pandemic, it's become even stronger. So let me just give you, before I turn it over to Brandy and her testament of what we are all pairing together to do in Brevard County, let me give you some of the signs of trafficking, because what I would love to do is equip you to be able to kind of see some of the things that might register a red flag with you and get you to make a phone call to the National Human Trafficking number, which I will leave on the screen in just a second, or to your local police force with a 911 call. Because the truth of the matter is, we may be wrong, but what if we're right? So we can always make that call. We're happy to be wrong, but we could very well be right. So some of the things that you would be looking for is you see with young adults or children just appears very submissive or fearful, doesn't make eye contact. Whoever they're with, they're just not acting as if, they're acting so fearful. Eye contact is a really big thing with traffickers. They're not allowed to do anything. They completely own the trafficked victim, and they know that you can plead with your eyes. I always joke about, I'm one of 3 girls, I was the middle child, I was the trouble one. And so I was always pleading to get out of trouble, and I would use my eyes, of course I would. My dad was a soft touch, so, once I just could get in there a little bit, maybe I could lower my sentence a little. So, there are ways to make eye contact to let someone know that something's wrong, and traffickers are very aware of that. Of course, obvious would be injuries from beatings, branding, or scarring that indicate ownership. Typically, they will put a branding even on their neck or on their face or someplace where they can't avoid it. Sometimes it's like a sign of a dollar sign or crown or something like that. And if you see someone, significantly older person that seems to be not related to them. So if you already knew this individual, you would realize maybe if the person they were with was not related. But even if you don't know them, the good Lord gave us something called instinct. We have gut instinct. We talk about women's intuition, men have it too. You can just kind of tell if the relationship between the adult and the child does not seem friendly, does not seem complacent. There's a way to hold someone's hand in protection, and there's a way to hold someone's hand in entrapment, that they are not allowed to move or step even 2 steps forward. So you'll understand when you see those types of things. If they control their ID, their speech, they're not allowed to talk, they speak for them if you ask a question. overly drugged, they seem to be intoxicated, if it's even someone that you already know and you feel like they seem that way frequently when you see them, these could be possible red flags. And if they have no knowledge of where they are and why they're there, many times you're transported out of state, out of country, whatever the case is, and so they very well might not even know at all where they are. And so these are things like, for instance, when you're out every day driving around, when you're going to pump gas at a racetrack. I had an incident at a racetrack one time that I did have to make a call. If you're in an airport, if you stay in hotels for any reason, we're very proud of Marriott hotel chains. We're the very first chain that does mandatory training for every single one of their employees and post signs within their hotels about human trafficking at every bathroom. So they're really working hard towards this, as well as a lot of the airlines and things too. So I don't want to take too much time, and we'll go into question and answers after Brandy's done, but I do want to just show you, this is the National Human Trafficking Hotline number. This is something that you can certainly call if you saw anything that you had any questions over. You can also, if you saw something that was so obvious to you that you really and truly feel like you are witnessing a crime, just call 911. But if you see something that you feel like could be related to trafficking, you could definitely call the hotline. It's anonymous. They're not gonna ask, they'll ask you some detailed questions, but that's about it. It won't take a lot of your time or anything to that effect. And if you were to put this in your phone today, I would appreciate it if you would put the letter A before the description. So then it would be A National Trafficking Hotline, then it goes into your address book under A's, and if you're in a nervous, fumbling position trying to call, when you open your phone, it's right there at the top. You can use, so that definitely makes it a lot easier for you to make these calls. But we just need to really and truly be in prayer over this, be active over this. I'd love to hear what any of you feel like you might even be able to do today. But just knowing more today than you did yesterday is really going to make a big difference and help to put us all in a better place of rescuing as many as we can and sharing what you learned today with other people so that you can educate them. Because as soon as you know what you know, then you're less vulnerable automatically. So, Randy?
Thank you, Lori.
It seems like, I don't want to lose this. It seems like we need to be intentional anyway with our witness and evangelizing, but we need to engage people in public. Say, hey, how are you doing? See how they react, that type of thing. We tend to clam up. We tend to be in our own little holes and shells.
Yes.
And we got to be more intentional than ever, even if they
Absolutely.
think that we're a casket.
I love that, and he's absolutely right. I'm going to share with you why I'm doing this. My baby sister was a victim of human trafficking, and she is now deceased. It was very hard for my family to understand how we didn't know that she was being trafficked. We didn't know. We just thought it was overseas. We thought it was in another state. But actually, my little sister was a very beautiful young lady, very outgoing, and the person who had, I'm not going to get into all the details, but the person who first lured her in, she knew them. And they stayed with her for about a year, talking to her, winning her confidence, and then introduced her to somebody else. And then after the police came and we found out that my little sister was deceased and had been trafficked, it was very, very difficult to live with. Because, like you were saying, we need to be intentional. We don't need to just have good intentions. We need to be intentional about looking around and seeing the signs of human trafficking. So for me, I started because I felt like God called me to do this. I was working with domestic abuse women for almost 20 years through the churches. And then as this happened to my sister, it turned my whole heart around. So my husband and I flew out to New York to work with a team called Project Rescue. Project Rescue is the largest ministry in the world of rescuing girls and boys and children. And they have a high success rate of about 92%. That's unheard of. So they work with the brothels, they work with the little children. And they said, I remember when my husband and I came out, we were sitting in a room with a lot of people like yourself. And he said, how many people feel so much compassion about this? And we all raised our hand. And then he said, how many of you are ready to go right now? You wanna do this? Everybody raise their hand. He said, well, how many has had training? Only 2 raised their hand. So he said to us, go back home, get engaged with the law enforcement, go for training, because even though I had worked with domestic abuse women, it is nothing like human trafficking, nothing. So we came back, got involved with Sheriff Ivey, with Governor DeSantis. We also have some judges that we are working with. And so if you don't have that foundation that's laid, there may be a lot of people that want to go out and rescue, a lot of people that want to have homes, a lot of people that want to inform you about human trafficking, but if you have not had the right training, you will hurt the girls, you will not help them. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing right now. With the help of the governor, with the help of Sheriff Ivey right here in our own community, we are starting to get safe homes. There were no safe homes here. None in Brevard County. And Brevard County is a hot spot. Believe it or not, when the cruise lines were going and the air flights that you could take out of Daytona, this was very much a hot spot for these people. And I know that we say that there's a lot of people taken at 7 and 12, but there's also those being taken at the age of 4. They want them, the younger they get them, the more monies that they get for them. So what we did is we decided that we're gonna try to get these homes and get the girls in the home, but then the pandemic hit. And we couldn't raise any money. And we said, okay, how are we gonna rescue them? We can keep telling everybody about what the problem is. But if you don't rescue those girls, if you don't put them in a safe home and try to help them, then everything that you're doing is kind of in vain. So we started working with people like Called Out and Freedom Fighters and other groups. We have become a coalition. So what we decided to do is we were just gonna go and say, can we do what's called Adopt a Month so that we could pay our mortgage? We started having people say, I'll pay that month, I'll pay that month, I'll pay that month. We got enough monies that we could get our first home. So I'm very excited. We have our first safe home here in Brevard County. It's being worked on right now. And I rescued a girl about 2 weeks ago. She had gone through the whole program, not here because we had no safe homes, so I had to take her to other places. She had gone for 5 years. She was doing great. She had finished her school. She had trauma counseling. She was starting on the road to go back into society when her trafficker found her and convinced her he had become a Christian. Said, marry me. She married him. And then within a few weeks, he was trying all the same things again and beating her up. And I remember her calling and saying, Miss Brandy, help me, help me. And I didn't know where she was because she had moved from the area where she was. And I'm going, tell me where you are. And she's screaming, he's beating her. She jumps out of the car. She runs down the road. Some people call the police. She goes into a business, they arrest me. But listen to this, guys. He goes to jail because he's already been in trouble many, many years ago. They let him out. He comes after her again. I put her in another safe place. And he comes after her again. They lock him up. They let him out 3 times. They don't care what's happening. We have to change this court system. So what we've been doing in Sarasota, the judges are in, the policemen are in, the detectives are in. Everybody in Sarasota has come and made it easier for these girls to speak up, and they're giving them 2 life sentences now. They're not just patting them on the back, they're saying you're gonna have 2 life sentences. So that's what we're trying to get for Brevard County. I went and I picked up this girl, and Bill, she said to me, when I was talking about God, because only God can change these girls. We can do our part, but that's just a Band-Aid. But if you don't have God to come and to heal their hearts and their warped identities, then you don't get anywhere. And I remember her saying to me, Miss Brandy, there probably really is a God that loves me because I should have 500 babies.
Oh.
And she said, I should be dead 1,000,000 times. She just told me this day before yesterday. She said, I've had guns on me, on every part of my body. She said, while I was being raped. She said, there were times that I didn't think I would ever get out of where I was. But God. So yes, Miss Brandy, I do believe that there is a God. But I just didn't know who he was. And now that I'm thinking about it and I'm where I'm not on drugs, where I'm not drinking, I know he was looking after me. So we have her, you've met her, she's a wonderful girl, isn't
Yes,
she?
she
Ricky is wonderful. So I want to just share very quickly before Lori and I answer some questions. We need 4 homes, guys. We take them in the first home, we assess them medically, we have a Christian psychologist that comes. We try to keep our ministry where everything is Christian based, okay? So the Christian psychologists, the Christian counselors, and we even teach them God's word while they're there. Then after they're in the assessment home, they move on to a residential home, which is our houses. And we continue to teach them. We teach them finances, we teach them how to dress. Some of them have never even been able to read a book, they were taken so early. So we take them to the residential home, and as they grow, and we see that they might be able to go to work, then we go out and we get 100 different businesses that we do background checks on. Like say, you might have a business and say, I would be interested in hiring them. We do a background check, and then we talk to you and say, are you gonna look after them? Because you hire her, and the first day she sees someone that looks like her trafficker, she's out the door. And that may happen 3 times. If she's not able to follow through on that job, then we take her back and start her over again, because she's not ready to integrate into society. Because if you try to tell them, let me pray for you in the name of the Father, their words to us are, it was father after father who raped me, don't tell me that. But I'm gonna leave you with one story right now that really talks really well of how Jesus helps us. I work with Project Rescue, and Beth Grant is a minister also. And she goes around and she speaks, and they brought this girl that had been sold at the age of 7 to the mafia. She had traveled all over the world, and they never let you keep your name. But when they get you, all your ID is gone. You'll take on the name I give you, and I better not hear your real name. Some of them carve it right into the forearm. Some carve it down their leg because they're afraid they're going to forget their names. But this girl had escaped at the age of 22. She came into that meeting, Beth Grant, she said, would you pray for her? Would you pray for this girl? And Beth Grant, being a minister, stood back and thought, God, what do I say? Because so many times when we're dealing with these girls, we don't know what we're supposed to say. And so she said, God, you're going to have to speak through me. She stood up, she stepped up, prayed for this young lady, and the girl ran out the door screaming and crying. And Beth Grant thought, I must have said the wrong thing. They brought her back in, and she said, tell Beth Grant what you just told me. She said, from the age of 7 to 22, I have never told anyone my real name, never, because they put it in my head. They call me Queen. But as you were praying for me, you said my real name 3 times. Only God could have told you that.
Wow.
So, gentlemen, I'm here to say this morning, I come representing a heart that says, help me, because I cannot do this by myself. There are girls and little boys being taken every day. I'm on a task force, and I work hard to make this foundation where it's firm, where it's covered with God and a lot of prayer. But you can't just do it by yourself. You need some good guys, you need some good women. So we want to answer some questions if you have them. What time is it, Bill?
It's now 12:30, 15 minutes.
Okay. Yes.
What kind of training do you need to have a home, or what's your criteria for a home?
Well, we had to train for 5 years.
Right.
We trained for 5 years because you have to know how to work with law enforcement, and
Right.
you have to know how to work with all of the counselors and the psychologists and all of their needs, because when you get these girls, they're so broken down that every girl is different in how you work with them. So for us, the training was vitally important.
So you said you needed 4 homes here, and
Yes.
what does that look like to you guys, though? I mean, is it an individual that wants to donate a property to you, or is it someone that lives there that will have 4 rooms in their house?
We
What
can't-
does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't put people in homes with people because they don't understand that
Right.
human trafficking you cannot hold that girl.
Right.
When people would say, oh, you're afraid the trafficker will come back and shoot up the house, no, they're gone. And this sounds awful, but to them, that's trash. They're not coming back to be prosecuted for that. But what is the problem? The girls will run away.
Right.
They only know what they've been doing for all these years is client after client, up to 30 men a day they service, a day. So by the time we get them, their bodies are broken down. Some of them cannot have babies. Many of them have STDs. Mentally, they're just messed up. But with the training, and as far as I know, we are the only ones that's had the full training, Life Recaptured, for the 5 years that we've been doing it. The training that we have, they also called out, has been trained, and she helps to train people.
So like the homes are purchase homes, is I think
Yes.
is what
Gotcha,
he's
all right.
asking.
Yeah.
Yes, and Sheriff Ivey was helpful in some of the decision making, right? On some of
Yes.
the placement of where the house could be, has
Yes.
to remain disclosed, the address and things like that.
So we need 4.
Funding
Okay.
typically for the house or
Gotcha.
property.
What protection does the schools have? I have a 15-year-old granddaughter that walks back and forth to school every day in Merritt Island.
You wanna take-
Who protects her? Does the school have any system to protect these people?
We've been going into
The school does not have a system off property to protect. The school is held responsible as soon as the student steps onto property or rides a bus or something to that effect. But even waiting for the bus, schools know, unfortunately, not liable for that type of thing. And that's why I try to step in to educate so that, you know, parents and grandparents and things can be
Teachers.
giving those facts to the children. You can have apps on your phone. I can always give you more information on that. That would red flag you on your phone. You can put any phone, any laptop, any device on it. If a certain word comes over the phone or someone's asking, where do you live? What's your address? Or any kind of things like that, it would red flag your phone, and then you could, get to the child and different things like that.
So, sir, we are trying to get more in the schools. We did go to Cocoa High, and to believe it or not, we took in some sheriffs with us, some counselors with us, and we had two children that were being in junior high that were being trafficked. So that was before the pandemic. It's a little hard now with what's going on in the schools, but we are educating principals and teachers and healthcare workers there. We are letting them know what's going on with
And are
trafficking.
they educating the children?
Yes, with
There
our help,
is
we are.
actually a very small entity of education now currently on human trafficking. It's small and it's brief. But again, like Brandy said, I also was allowed to zoom into Titusville High School recently, and I'm happy. I've been also to Palm Bay Christian School to educate staff and children. But it's definitely a door we want to
Yes,
see
sir.
open more.
I came in late, so you may have covered this. What of the 22 of us here that are listening to you, if we see something, and because trafficking is increasing, because this administration is opening border dramatically,
I know.
Yes.
how can we spot someone who's being used, who's been taken captive, and what are we supposed to do immediately?
We can send you, she did go over some of the signs of that, but I will tell you that we are getting ready to hold some, different meetings where we can inform you of the things that's going on in the community. If you're interested today, you just need to give me your email address and your phone number so we can let you know it's for training, and it will help you to be aware of some of the things that are going on. You need to have your eyes open, you need to know what's going here in this area. We work with a lieutenant from Panama City who's created a task force for trafficking, and he says, Brandy, every single week, all the things change. The brandings change, the language changes, because they don't want us to talk to the girls that have been rescued and them tell us, a trail that we can follow. So they're always changing it, they're always networking. They came to this area because they've already networked and they found out that this was a hot spot for them. So now we have to be, like you were saying, intentional. We have to open up our eyes, we have to open up our ears, and we need you guys to work with us. We need some good men that can show these girls with what you're doing that you care. That there are good men, you are. They've had a few bad men, so in their minds they think they're all bad.
We have longer presentations than this. We're putting this presentation into your entity for your meeting today, but if you had a situation, we have a greater length for what we talk about.
you just mentioned we can help, but obviously there are some areas we couldn't help.
Right.
But what are some other examples of how we can help besides working at one of the safe houses, painting or whatever? But what else could we do in the system of things?
Well, I think it's important for you to help us keep getting in places where we can talk to men, because we don't get to talk to a lot of men. We have a lot of followers that are women, but now that we're getting out here where we're talking to you, we do have some teams that we put together that help to rescue sometimes, but we work with law enforcement. So, you know, there's so many things that we can talk to you individually about if you are interested in helping us with this, because it is very intimate, it's very secretive, a lot of the things that we do, but we need men that say, okay, I'm taking this on, I wanna help. And we also do need different things where we have to have things built for the girls. We have a garden that we're growing food in that garden so we can feed the girls. We need help in the garden. So there's a lot of areas that you can help us in, and we need your ideas.
Even as far as being a business partner or being a donor, a one-time or consistent donor, anything like that, we can take that type of stuff in also. There's a lot of
Yes.
different entities. And prayer. The first one is prayer to see where He wants you. My organization is called out. Brandy and I have only known each other since like September. God has put us together, and here we are partnering and doing. We have an entire coalition in Brevard County. If you're not called, it's a hard subject. If you're not called out to do something, it's really hard to do. But if you are called out to do something, and because your heart breaks for what breaks through us as the Lord asks us, He puts that little bit of peace and trinkles it into that little broken spot, and you just feel, I'll just assure you that you will feel a little bit better having known you've done something.
I want to tell you about one sting operation that we went on. It wasn't here, although we will be taking some of those with Sheriff Ivy. When I went on this operation, I saw a little tiny motel, just a very cheap motel that had a lot of expensive cars outside. And we were getting to watch as they marched out 11 little girls that were in that room on just mattresses on the floor, being treated like they were cattle. And I know it's hard for me to share some of the things with men, but they weren't even using safeguards, they were just using saran wrap and just moving them through just like they were nothing. These are little girls we're talking about. Could be your granddaughters, could be your daughters. And to see those little girls that hadn't had baths in probably months, all laying in a room together, being treated with no respect.
Yeah.
We'll never get over that unless God completely heals them. So, are there any more questions?
What's the percentage of boys that are trafficked compared to the girls? I mean,
The boys is a smaller percentage. It's probably more like about 30%.
30.
Yeah. Yes. But
We
the-
do reach out to them though, and we do partner with other people so that if we get young boys that are being trafficked, we have a place for them. We don't forget them,
okay.
because they are being trafficked. Yes, sir?
My question is, being proactive in it, do you guys offer some kind of training like that a church can host
I
or
do,
something?
yes.
To where people that have kids and grandkids and
We
things.
go to the
like that.
churches and speak, so
Okay.
today, if you would like us to. And I'm also an ordained minister. I became ordained through our church. We're Cocoa First Assembly, so we love to come into the churches and share.
And we talk as low as preschool. We've been to a MOPS group and talked to moms of preschoolers and just give them little studies on it. Teach your child if they have an icky feeling about anything, come talk to you. Just different ways to open up the communication in families and get back to talking.
Becky?
Is Catholic Charities part of your coalition?
You know what, it's really hard to get in with the Catholic organization. They only work kind of within their own organization. They're very friendly to us, but they really haven't done anything to help us. And the lady explained that we just work within our own organization.
I'd like to talk to you about that.
Yes, sir.
These victims, the children, are they primarily minorities,
No,
people
sir.
of color?
No, sir. It's just across the board, people you wouldn't even think about. Like one girl, her name is Rainey. Have you heard of Bikers Against Human Trafficking? Have any of you heard of them?
Yeah.
Well, as you get to know us, you will get to know them. They're a wonderful couple. She was sold at the age of 4. Her father was a prominent man in the area. A little white girl that went to church, went to school every day, made very good grades, but was being, every time she went to another level at her school, there was another person that had raped her. And so her father, you know, kept up in the society as though he were a very good person, but she finally escaped at the age of 22, but was actually trafficked during that whole time by her father. And now she married a guy that was sold at the age of 3, and now he is a Christian psychologist and she's a trauma counselor, and you guys will meet them, they're wonderful people, wonderful.
Second question, do you have a national website for information?
They do have Polaris, is that what it is?
Yeah, there's Polaris, but you can also you can go on to Life Recaptured.
Yeah, we have a website with Life Recaptured.
.org, right?
Yes.
As well as, threecalledout.org, we started out
I have
with
my
3.
cards here, before you leave, I will love to give them out to you guys.
We're passing a sheet of paper around, the guys can
Oh,
put their
wonderful.
emails and give
Could
it to
you
you.
pass these too, and, that way everybody can, this has our website. Hey, can I tell you about our store? My family used to ship fruit all over the world for about 75 years. And they had a, packing house on North Courtney. And so that's been sitting there empty for a while, and I said, how are we gonna pay electricity? How are we gonna pay for food and insurance and all this stuff we need? And I felt like when I was praying, God said, go to your family and ask them, can you use that building for a year? And of course, it's not just my husband, it's family. So I went and they said, okay, you can take it for a year. And I'm telling you, that place, guys, was horrible. It was like 10,000 hoarders that lived there. And I thought when I first walked in, God, you gotta be kidding, I'm too old for this. I cannot do this. But you know what? God sent me people, and it is beautiful. We have a store now. You guys have to come out and see our store. It's on North Courtney, and it's 5515 North Courtney. We sell orange juice, fresh orange juice. You can't get it anywhere else like we have it. We have oranges, marmalades, honey. We have a man shop in there that he makes all kinds of man things in there because we didn't want to just have stuff for women.
So yeah, come to that part.
So come out and see us, because if you can come out and buy anything from there, then that helps. All the monies goes to sustain our home.
100%.
Everybody's volunteer. It's beautiful though, isn't it?
It is
It's
beautiful. It is beautiful. And the sign does still read Crisafulli Groves, so don't feel like you're in the wrong spot. You see that sign, which you can see from afar,
Yeah.
you're there.
Well, we have oranges, so
Yeah,
we're
right,
still Crisafulli grows, yeah.
Even have your own hogs too, don't you?
You know what? We're gonna have everything out. Anything that I think is gonna help, we're gonna have it. I don't care if it's a hog or a chicken or, but we have a garden that we're growing in the back, and it's called a community you pick garden. So pretty soon you'll be able to come out and pick your own produce and
Is
stuff.
it north of the barge canal?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
3.5 miles on your left-hand side. Yes, sir?
Given that, we're a warm climate and that people who traffic in human beings, if somebody is, for example, is brought up here from, say, south of the border, they owe that coyote, a lot of money, and we know how they treat, anybody that they have, little kids or women or anybody. Aren't we more susceptible here, being as that we're, you know, if you take somebody who doesn't speak any English up to Massachusetts or somebody, then maybe they might be more suspicious. But if they're here in Florida and they speak in Spanish, they don't speak any other language, they're gonna, that's one.
You're absolutely right.
there.
They blend in, and
So
that's
they
the
wanted-
reason, yeah.
So the question, but they're still a victim, and they're being, whatever they are, and they're only interested in them, aside from, for serving them sexually, the only purpose of them is to make money. So the question is, isn't there more ways to find out who these people are that are coming into our county and doing this kind of stuff, and bringing people here?
It's really hard.
Well, it's very difficult, and I'll tell you why, because of the internet system, because really human trafficking, sex trafficking, whatever you call it, isn't as much on the streets as it once was. You can't pinpoint it all the time. It's coming through your smartphone, your child's smartphone, the internet, the webs, all that type of stuff, and
Is
so
law
they're under the
enforcement-
radar.
Is law enforcement, using their techniques?
They are, in fact, when
National and international
Yes.
security agency notice to find these people?
Yes,
Okay.
and they're working very hard with us. In fact, we just found out, from another agency that's here in town that there was a girl that was brought over the border, and she went into the pregnancy center, and they saw the branding, and they knew that she was being trafficked, and so they called me, and they said, she won't let us tell anyone because she's afraid she's gonna be deported. So now we're working with law enforcement, how do we work this? Because it's not fair, she was brought over to be trafficked, but she's afraid, so now we're working on those, situations.
Brandy, tell the story from 2 weeks ago when the man was arrested and released, but I just wanna say first, we can help lobby our politicians to have more stricter laws, because the story she's gonna tell you happened.
Is that the one about Brookie? That's the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
I just told
But,
about.
Oh, no,
no,
what
the
about
guy
the
was
gentleman in
released on bail the
Edgewater?
next day.
The
Yeah.
one that-
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he was released, that was the girl that I went to pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was released 3 times.
Yeah.
3 times that he was released. And so now what we're doing is we need to make our area known that we're not gonna put up with that. Sarasota they don't even wanna go there in traffic, cause they know that that community's so strong, they're gonna be put away. Let me tell you one story. We had one girl that had been in one rehab. We're not a rehab, we're a ministry. But a girl had been taken into a rehab that had been trafficked. And so in rehab, it's just kinda like putting a Band-Aid on, you know, it's not, we're with them for life. And our program goes for about 3.5 years. So she went into court, she tried to tell her story, but she was afraid and her trafficker was in court. They dismissed it. So then she got put with Sail of Freedom, who we train with, and they're in Sarasota. Well, in our group, we pray with you, we have big detectives that have big muscles that are right with us when we go into court, and we pray so much before those girls go into court, and we take in those guys with the muscles, and they sit behind them, and when the judge says, can you point to who trafficked you? They were afraid before, they thought they would kill them. Now they point to them, say, he trafficked me, and those guys are getting 2 life sentences. So you have to get them to the point they're not afraid.
Right.
And that's by letting them know we are with you and God is with you and we're not gonna leave you. So we don't leave them. We're with them for life.
Yeah.
We keep having reunions just like you have them from your school reunions. And
Yeah.
we do, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's
you're right.
okay.
No, I'm just.
But
saying true.
some of them are reuniting with their family, but we have to check because sometimes it's families who are doing it, so we don't reunite them with all the family.
The other case that Bill might also be referring to was, when we spoke at his F.U.E.L meeting, was that a girl in Edgewater was taken.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Someone came through social media to her or a gaming system, I'm not sure, did not disclose what that was. And he eventually did what they call grooming, where they say all the right things for whatever amount of time, got her to agree to meet him at a Dollar General, a local Dollar General. Fortunately, she told a friend about it, that she's gonna meet this guy. And fortunately, the friend told an adult. I don't know, it did not disclose. This is all from Channel 9 News was sent to me that did not disclose those parts. So police were warned. So then the police came to the Dollar General that she was to be at and pulled the cameras and saw her in the store, saw her never buying, but walking around, loitering, and on her phone. And then they saw her leave. And so he didn't really know where they went. But he went from, this police officer went from hotel to hotel to hotel in the Edgewater, I don't know, maybe Daytona area, until he found her. He finally got in there, she came running to him, crying, petrified, hid behind him. So she was not willingly partaking in any kind of a physical relationship with this man. He was arrested, he was brought to jail on a Monday, he was out Tuesday morning on $15,000. That's it. And that's the stuff when I talk about eradication and we talk about that. When your crime involves a minor like that, you should not be able to get out, boom, that very next day. I took that news broadcast and I posted it on my called out page on Facebook. Do you know Facebook shut me down? Facebook told me I broke their rules, that this man has rights and I inflicted on his rights. And I said, wow, I'm happy to take however many days off Facebook as you're gonna take off me. They banned me for so many days, told me I've done this twice, if I do it a 3rd time, they're gonna take my whole thing off. I said, if I warned 20 people, I put the man's picture up and I said, if you see this man with a minor, call. And it's just crazy.
Wow.
Sir, you had a question?
You need to get this little scenario to Bill Posey, our representative, because all of us here are very angry at losing our First Amendment by Facebook and Twitter and Google. And we want those organizations broken up so we have our First Amendment back.
Yes, sir. He
And-
works very closely with us. Bill Posey does. He's an
Good.
advocate for
Good.
this.
And the other thing is, these guys hate children or minors or other people like that. They develop a scenario, so, because they know that somebody will ask, well, what are you doing with this little child here or something? And they'll say, or they'll have a scenario where they'll be prepared to defend it. I mean, that little girl that was taken in the Midwest by that old guy and his wife, remember whoever that was?
Samantha,
Karen,
was it?
Karen?
Smart, Samantha Smart.
Smart, right. And he went
Elizabeth Smart,
around, he went around with her openly at different places, like it was his daughter. So do you think that the police are trained enough that when they get a call, that they're gonna be able to make sure that this person,
No, I don't. I don't think yet that they are, but we're working very hard on that.
because they should be, and the national parties, Democrats and Republicans, should be emphasizing this. They wanna talk about everything else, transgenders and all that. Well, maybe this is a little more important, and
Yes,
a little
sir.
wider spread real, you know?
Yes, sir. And
Well,
we're
that
working
falls
in
into
that.
it too.
We're sorry.
Stand in
It falls
agreement with
into
you.
it too, this transgender, stuff too. They find it extremely profitable to, have oddities, and things like that for these, sick individuals to prey upon. And so there's a lot of that going on too. So, I mean, this all falls together.
It all does. You're absolutely right, and we have to be very careful. And we have tried to work with lawyers and everything to make sure none of those are taken into our home. And you don't know how hard that is to fight to keep them out of our home.
I got a question. There was a news break this morning in Tennessee. 150 missing kids were found in Tennessee. When we find these kids, is it usually in a big bulk like that, or is it like solo, one at a time?
It varies.
what's
Sometimes
the-
it's big bulk and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just solo. That's why we can't really get the true number to you guys about who's being trafficked.
Right.
Because sometimes it's just a truckload of missing kids.
Right.
And until they're found, we can't tell if they've been trafficked.
Right.
Which we know they are. They're trafficked. Did you want to add to that?
No, I just wanted to say that, yeah, it's an amazing thing when you get a bulk load like that, where you can find this entire trafficking ring and not just a traffic victim.
Right. It's interesting.
We have like sample, we have a ministry, it's in Celebration, isn't it, Bill, that pastor, that takes people out of prisons and after they, think that they can make it, and gets a bond for them, gets them into jobs, you know what I'm talking about? You've had him at our meeting, he's an African-American pastor from north of here. Nobody remembers him? Alright, well, the thing is, once these people are basically able to to be on their own, if they have no skills, which obviously they probably didn't before they got trafficked, is there any kind of, they're throwing away only about 10% of the money being spent on this COVID release, this current one, is actually related to, is there any funds or programs for educating or providing
Yes,
people
sir.
get education and all that, so they
Yes,
can
sir.
get something, a career?
We
some
have
kind of skills?
scholarship programs and we have tutors that come in and help them to finish their schooling.
Oh.
And then we have the scholarships that help them to go on further. So that's very important what you said. If we don't empower them, then they go right back out and do the same thing again. And there was a gentleman in the back.
What's the